The briefing room aboard the USS Sentinel was packed tight that morning, buzzing with the low hum of officers and analysts preparing for the annual Joint Forces evaluation. Salt air mixed with coffee and the metallic tang of electronics. Everyone in that room had years of experience etched into the lines of their faces. Everyone except the quiet woman standing near the back. She wore standard Navy fatigues, but something was wrong. No rank insignia on her collar, no unit patch on her sleeve, no name tape above her breast pocket, just clean pressed fabric and a small black bracelet on her left wrist that caught the fluorescent light when she moved. Her hands rested behind her back in parade rest. Her eyes swept the room in a pattern that seemed random, but wasn't. She'd already memorized every exit, counted every weapon, assessed every person. The habit was automatic now. Survival always was. Nobody knew who she was. They only knew she'd arrived 2 hours before dawn with level 6 clearance in a sealed folder that not even the executive officer dared to touch. The folder sat on the conference table now, its government seal unbroken, its contents unknown. Admiral Thaddeus Brennan stood at the front of the room, silver white hair catching the light, his dress whites immaculate despite the early hour. At 68, he still carried himself like the destroyer captain he had been in Desert Storm. His blue eyes were sharp as broken glass, and they missed nothing, especially not the woman who didn't belong. He noticed her silence first. In a room full of brass and bluster, she stood like a stone in a river. The current moved around her. She didn't move at all. Brennan had spent 40 years reading people. It was how you stayed alive when missiles screamed out of the Gulf darkness. This woman was wound tight as a spring, combat tight, the kind of tension that came from seeing things that changed you permanently. He decided to break it. Tension like that could snap. "You Poe," he said, pointing toward her casually, his voice carrying that easy authority that came from decades of command. "The newcomer. Haven't seen you before." The room fell quiet. Heads turned. The woman didn't flinch, didn't even blink. She just met his gaze with eyes the color of storm clouds over still water. "You look pretty calm," Brennan continued, a slight smile playing at the corner of his mouth, for someone in a room full of brass. A few officers chuckled. The tension eased. Brennan was known for his humor, the kind that cut through military formality like a blade through silk. It was one of the things that made him effective. He could make you laugh right before he ordered you into hell. The woman's expression didn't change. Not a flicker, not a twitch. Brennan leaned back against the conference table, folding his arms across his chest. The smile widened. "So tell me." He paused for effect, glancing around at the other officers who were now fully engaged in the moment. "What's your kill count?" More chuckles rippled through the room. It was an old joke among warriors, a way to break the ice with new personnel. Nobody ever gave a real answer. Brennan's eyes sparkled with mischief. "You look like you've at least punched somebody." The room laughed, genuine laughter now, the kind that came from shared experience and camaraderie. Several officers were grinning, waiting for the newcomer to smile, to deflect, to play along with the game. But she didn't smile. Her face remained perfectly neutral, almost serene. And in that moment, something shifted in the room. The laughter died like a candle in wind. She stepped forward, not rushed, not hesitant, just smooth, economical movement that ate up distance without seeming to hurry. She stopped 3 paces from Admiral Brennan, came to attention, and her voice cut through the silence like a scalpel. "Sir, with respect." Her tone was quiet but carried to every corner of the room. "My official number is classified." She paused. "Let it hang there." Officers leaned forward slightly in their chairs. "But since you asked as a joke." Another pause. Longer this time. The room held its breath. "The unofficial count is 193 confirmed." Someone's pen clattered on a notepad. The sound was deafening in the silence. 312 total. The air seemed to leave the room. Several officers straightened in their seats like they'd been shocked. A commander near the front actually stood up halfway, then caught himself and sat back down. Eyes went wide. Mouths opened slightly. The number hung in the air like smoke from a gun barrel. 312. Admiral Brennan's smile melted like wax. His arms unfolded slowly. His eyes went from amused to calculating in the space of a heartbeat. 40 years of combat experience kicked in, and he recognized what he was looking at. This wasn't a soldier. This was a weapon. 300. His voice had lost all trace of humor. And what unit did you say you were with? I didn't say, sir. She reached into her pocket and produced the sealed folder, placing it on the table in front of him with precise care. But it's inside. Brennan looked at the folder like it was a live grenade. The government seal was intact. Level 6 classification. That meant eyes only for flag officers with specific clearance. It meant secrets that could end careers or start wars. His hand hovered over it for a moment. Then he broke the seal. The sound of tearing paper was obscenely loud. He opened the folder, his jaw locked immediately. The muscles in his face went rigid. Color drained from his cheeks. For 5 long seconds, he just stared at the first page. Then he flipped to the second. His eyes widened. Third page. His breathing changed, became shallow. Fourth page. His hand trembled slightly as he held the corner. The officers closest to him tried to see craning their necks, but he closed the folder with a sharp snap that made several people jump. Everyone out. His voice was granite. No humor now, no warmth, just command. Now. Nobody moved for a heartbeat. Confusion rippled through the room. The Admiral's executive officer started to speak. Sir, the evaluation. Now, chairs scraped against the deck. Boots thundered. Within 30 seconds, the room emptied like water down a drain. The executive officer was the last to leave, casting one long look at the woman who still stood at attention, then at his Admiral before closing the door behind him. The sound of the lock engaging was like a tomb ceiling. Brennan stood there, one hand on the folder, the other gripping the edge of the table hard enough that his knuckles went white. He looked at the woman. Really looked at her, seeing her now not as a stranger but as what she actually was. Operative Ghost Valkyrie. His voice was barely above a whisper. I thought you weren't real. I thought you were a ghost story they told at Langley. I'm real enough, sir. She relaxed slightly from attention, her hands clasping behind her back again. And I'm here because your Pacific Fleet simulation has a flaw. Brennan's eyes narrowed. That simulation was designed by our top strategists, MIT graduates, Naval War College professors, people who've spent their entire careers. Strategy is theory, Admiral. She cut him off, not rudely, but with the flat certainty of someone who'd proven the difference. I'm bringing you experience. She stepped closer, tapped the folder with one finger. Page 3. The mission you thought failed in 2021. Operation Nightfall. Syria-Iraq border. Nuclear material interdiction. Brennan's hand moved to turn the pages. She continued talking as he read. Official record says mission failed. 12 operators killed in action. Nuclear material unrecovered. Taliban affiliate claimed responsibility. Defense Department called it a tactical failure and buried the file. He was on page 3 now. His eyes scanned the lines. Mission designation, team roster, operational parameters, expected casualties, actual casualties. But it didn't fail, she said quietly. I completed it. Alone. Brennan read the after-action report. The real one, not the sanitized version that went into official channels. His lips moved slightly as he processed the words. Nuclear material secured enemy combatants. 47 KIA friendly casualties, 11 KIA, 1 survivor mission status. Success classified survivor Lieutenant CDR Elena Caterina Marchetti. He looked up at her, looked at her face, seeing it properly now. The fine scar above her left eyebrow, the slight hardness around her mouth. The way her eyes didn't quite focus on anything, like she was always watching 3 things at once. You were Delta 7, it wasn't a question. Second in command, sir, under Colonel Marcus Dalton Vaughn. Something flickered across Brennan's face at the name. Recognition, maybe, or memory. Vaughn died 6 months after Syria, Brennan said slowly. Car accident outside Fort Bragg. I signed the condolence letter myself. Elena Ghost, whoever she was, she just looked at him with those storm cloud eyes. Did you read page 7, sir? He flipped pages. Found page 7. It was a photograph. High-resolution surveillance image. Date stamped 6 months ago. A man in civilian clothes meeting with 3 others in what looked like a Dubai marina. The man's face was turned toward the camera. Marcus Dalton Vaughn. Alive. Older. Harder. But unmistakably him. Sweet Christ. Brennan sat down heavily in the nearest chair. He's alive. He's more than alive, Admiral. He's operational. She pulled another photograph from inside her jacket, laid it on the table. This was taken 3 weeks ago. Port Sudan. That's Vaughn meeting with a known arms dealer named Qasim al-Rahman. Al-Rahman supplies half the mercenary groups operating between the Mediterranean and the Horn of Africa. Brennan studied the photo. Vaughn's face was caught in three-quarter profile, laughing at something al-Rahman had said. He looked relaxed, comfortable, like a man who'd found his calling. Why would a dead Marine colonel be buying weapons in Sudan? He's not buying, sir. He's selling. Or rather, he's facilitating. Vaughn runs a private military contractor group now. Calls himself Spectre, very exclusive, very expensive, and very, very illegal. She laid out more photos like cards in a poker game. Vaughn in Beirut, Vaughn in Caracas, Vaughn in Bangkok. Always meeting with the wrong people. Always in the shadows. He's been building this for 3 years, Elena continued. Ever since he faked his death, he's got operators, equipment, connections, and he's got something else. She pulled out a final photograph. This one made Brennan's blood run cold. It was a satellite image of a submarine, not just any submarine. An Ohio-class ballistic missile submarine, American. The hull number was visible. USS Michigan, SSGN 727. That's impossible, Brennan breathed. Michigan's in dry dock at Pearl Harbor. Has been for 6 months. That's what the paperwork says, but the paperwork's wrong. She tapped the image. This was taken 4 days ago. Philippine Sea. That's Michigan, and that's Vaughn commanding her. Brennan looked like he'd been punched in the chest. You're telling me that a rogue Marine colonel has stolen a United States ballistic missile submarine? Not ballistic anymore, sir. Michigan was converted to a guided missile submarine. Tomahawk cruise missiles. 154 of them, any of which could carry a nuclear warhead if someone had access to the right materials. The implications crashed over Brennan like a wave. The nuclear material from Syria. He didn't abandon the mission, Admiral. He sold it. The ambush that killed my team, that was Vaughn. He set us up, traded our position and our timing to the enemy for access to the nuclear material. He was supposed to make it look like a raid gone wrong, quick, clean, no survivors. Her voice didn't change. Still that same flat, controlled tone. But something flickered behind her eyes. Something dark and old and angry. But there was a survivor. Me. Brennan looked at her with new understanding. He's been hunting you. For 3 years, every time I surface, he finds me. Istanbul, Prague, Sao Paulo, Johannesburg. I've lost count of how many close calls I've had, but I'm still here. And he knows it, knows I'm the only person alive who can prove what he did. She leaned forward, both hands flat on the table. Your Pacific Fleet exercise in 72 hours, he knows about it. He's got the routes, the communications protocols, the response timing, and he's got inside help. Inside help. Brennan's voice was dangerous now. On my ship. On your ship. I don't know who yet, but there's someone feeding him information. That's how he knew I was coming. That's how he knew you'd requested a tactical consultant for the exercise. Brennan stood up slowly. If you're telling me what I think you're telling me, I'm telling you that in 72 hours, Vaughn is going to attack your fleet during the exercise. He's going to use Michigan and at least 3 other submarines. He's got surface assets too. Q-ships, civilian vessels modified with anti-ship missiles. You're going to lose the USS Sentinel. You're going to lose at least 2 escort destroyers. And you're going to lose 947 personnel. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. How do you know the exact number? Because I've seen his planning documents, Admiral. I've been tracking him for 3 years. I know how he thinks, how he operates, and I know what he wants. Which is... She stood up straight, and for the first time something like emotion crossed her face. Not fear, not anger, something colder. Me, he wants me dead. The fleet is just collateral damage. But if he succeeds, if he sinks a U.S. carrier strike group during a training exercise, it'll be the biggest blow to American naval power since Pearl Harbor. And he'll make it look like a terrorist attack. Maybe Chinese, maybe Russian. Doesn't matter. The world will think America's Navy got caught with its pants down. Brennan absorbed this. His mind was racing, connecting dots, seeing patterns. 40 years of experience told him she was telling the truth. Every instinct he'd honed in the Gulf, in the Atlantic, in the Pacific, was screaming at him that this woman was legitimate. You said you don't know who the insider is. Not yet, but I will. Give me 48 hours. Full access. Zero questions asked. I'll find them. I'll stop Vaughn, and I'll save your fleet. Brennan looked at her for a long moment, studied her face, her posture, the way she held herself. He was reading her the way he'd read 1,000 junior officers over 4 decades, looking for the lie, the crack, the weakness. He found none. Why reveal yourself now? He asked quietly. You've been dead on paper for 3 years. Why come back? She reached up slowly, carefully, and unclasped the black bracelet from her wrist. She opened it. Inside was a military dog tag. The metal was worn smooth in places. Loved. Carried. She held it where he could see the engraving. Captain I. Ravencroft, Delta 7. Sevis Pacem. Captain Isabel Ravencroft, Elena said softly. My commanding officer, my mentor, my friend. She died in my arms in Syria, bled out from an abdominal wound while I held pressure on it for 3 hours waiting for an extraction that never came. Her voice cracked just slightly on the last word. Just barely, but Brennan heard it. Her last words were about Vaughn. She said, don't let him get away with it. That's why I'm here, Admiral. Because Belle Ravencroft deserves better than being a number on a failed mission report. Because those 11 operators who died deserve to be remembered as the heroes they were, not as casualties of a tactical failure. She closed the bracelet, put it back on her wrist. When she looked at him again, her eyes were dry. But there was steel in them, the kind of steel that didn't bend. And because 947 of your people don't deserve to, so Marcus Vaughn can cover his crimes. Brennan stood there, the weight of the decision pressing down on his shoulders like a physical thing. He thought of his crew, young sailors barely out of high school who trusted him to bring them home, officers with families, chiefs with grandchildren, all of them counting on him to make the right call. He thought of David Marchetti, Captain David Castellano Marchetti. They'd served together on the USS Wisconsin during Desert Storm. David had pulled him out of a burning Bradley fighting vehicle during the ground offensive in Kuwait, saved his life. Brennan had stood at David's funeral 10 years ago, watched David's daughter, a young lieutenant at the time, receive the flag. He looked at her now, really looked at her, and he saw David's eyes, the same determination, the same unwillingness to quit. Your father, Brennan said quietly, Captain David Marchetti, I served with him in '91. Elena's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. He never mentioned you, sir. He wouldn't have. I was just a lieutenant commander then. Weapons officer. But your father saved my life during the ground push. Bradley took an RPG hit. Fuel tank ruptured. I was trapped in the turret. He paused, remembering the heat, the smoke, the certainty of death. David pulled me out with his bare hands, burned his arms to hell, doing in that medics said he should have lost both of them. He stepped closer to her. I stood at his funeral, watched you receive that flag. You looked just like him. Same eyes, same set to your jaw when you're angry. He died thinking I'd never amount to anything, Elena said quietly. I was too wild, too reckless. Joined the Navy to prove him wrong. By the time I made lieutenant, he was already sick. By the time I made lieutenant commander and got selected for special operations, he was gone. He knew, Brennan said. I visited him in the hospital 2 weeks before he passed. He talked about you. Said you were the best of him and your mother combined. Said you'd be the first female SEAL if the brass had any sense. Elena's jaw tightened. She looked away for a moment. When she looked back, her eyes were harder. Then let me finish what he started, sir. Let me prove he was right. Brennan reached up and unpinned the stars from his collar. 2 silver stars, the rank he'd earned over 40 years of service. He held them in his palm for a moment, feeling their weight, then set them carefully on the table. Commander Marchetti, as of this moment, you have full operational authority over this vessel and this exercise. 48 hours. You find the insider. You stop Vaughn. You save my fleet. He paused. But when this is over, you testify. Official record. Captain Ravencroft and those 11 operators get their names cleared. They get their honors, and you come back to us. The Navy needs people like you. Elena came to attention, her hands snapped up in a perfect salute. Yes, sir. I won't let you down. Brennan returned the salute. I know you won't. Your father never did either. He walked to the door, then paused with his hand on the handle. One more thing, the joke I made about your kill count. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I had no idea who you were, what you've done, what you've sacrificed. Elena's expression softened just slightly, almost imperceptibly. No apology necessary, Admiral. You asked as a joke. I answered with the truth. That's how this started. That's fitting. Brennan nodded slowly. Then he opened the door and stepped out into the corridor where 24 officers waited, confused and concerned. He looked at his executive officer. Commander Sullivan, pass the word to all department heads. We have a tactical consultant joining this for the exercise. She has my full authority. Anyone who questions her answers to me personally. Clear? Crystal, sir. And her name? Brennan glanced back through the still open door. Elena stood by the table, already spreading out maps and tactical charts, her mind clearly racing through scenarios and probabilities. Commander Marchetti, Brennan said, and she's about to save all of our lives. He closed the door and walked away, leaving Elena alone in the briefing room with her plans and her ghosts. Inside, Elena worked in silence. She spread out the maps of the Pacific Fleet exercise area, marked the choke points, calculated firing solutions, estimated response times. Every movement was precise, economical, the product of 3 years living in the shadows. Her fingers brushed against Belle Ravencroft's dog tag through the fabric of her bracelet. She'd carried it for 3 years. Through Istanbul and Prague, São Paulo and Johannesburg. Every close call, every firefight, every moment when she'd thought about giving up. The tag was warm from her skin. She closed her eyes for just a moment, let herself remember. Belle Ravencroft had been everything a commanding officer should be. Strong without being cruel, demanding without being unreasonable. She'd seen potential in Elena when others saw recklessness, shaped that raw aggression into something useful, something deadly. You're a weapon, Marchetti, Belle had said once during training. But weapons don't think. Warriors do. You want to survive in this world, you need to be both. Elena had learned to think 3 moves ahead, learned to read terrain and enemy patterns, learned to kill efficiently and without hesitation when necessary. And she'd learned something else too. She'd learned that some things were worth dying for. Belle had proven that in Syria. When Vaughn ordered the retreat, Belle had stayed with the wounded, stayed with the mission, stayed because that's what leaders did. And Elena had stayed too, because Belle had taught her that you never leave anyone behind. The memory of those final hours was burned into her mind like a brand. The dark facility, the sound of gunfire echoing off concrete, the smell of cordite and blood, Belle's voice growing weaker as the life leaked out of her. Don't let him get away with it. Belle had whispered, her hand gripping Elena's with surprising strength despite the blood loss. Promise me, whatever it takes. I promise, Elena had said, and she'd meant it. That promise had sustained her through 3 years of running, 3 years of close calls and narrow escapes, 3 years of hunting while being hunted. But now the running was over. Now Vaughn had made a mistake. He'd gotten bold, ambitious. He'd acquired a submarine and assembled a strike force, and he was going to use them, which meant Elena finally had a chance to keep her promise. She studied the maps with fresh intensity. Vaughn would use the exercise timeline against them, would position his submarines along the expected route, would wait until the fleet was strung out, vulnerable, focused on the simulated threat rather than a real one. It was a good plan, a plan that would work if nobody knew it was coming. But Elena knew, and that changed everything. She began marking positions on the map, enemy probable locations, firing solutions, response times, counter tactics. Her mind worked through the scenarios with machine-like efficiency. This was what she'd been trained for, what Belle had prepared her for. You're a weapon, Marchetti, but weapons don't think. Warriors do. Elena smiled grimly. Belle had been right. Vaughn was thinking like a weapon. Brutal, direct, overwhelming force. But Elena was thinking like a warrior. And warriors won by being smarter, not stronger. The door opened. Admiral Brennan stepped back in this time, accompanied by a broad-shouldered man in Navy fatigues. The man had the build and bearing of someone who'd spent 20 years doing things the Navy didn't officially acknowledge. "Commander Marchetti," Brennan said, "this is Lieutenant Commander Silas Thornwell, SEAL Team 6. He'll be your tactical liaison." Thornwell stepped forward. He was 42, black hair, cropped close to his skull, brown eyes that had seen too much and processed all of it. He looked at Elena with the careful assessment of a professional evaluating another professional. "Ma'am," he said simply. Elena studied him, read his posture, his wariness, his skepticism. She'd seen it before. SEALs didn't trust outsiders, especially outsiders who showed up with Admiral-level clearance and classified folders. "Lieutenant Commander," she acknowledged, "I need a briefing on your team's capabilities, response times, equipment loadouts, combat experience. With respect, ma'am, my team doesn't need a babysitter." There it was, the challenge, testing her, seeing if she'd back down or get defensive. Elena did neither. She just looked at him with those storm cloud eyes and spoke in that same flat, certain tone. "I don't babysit, Commander Thornwell. I operate. And right now, your team is going to help me stop a rogue colonel from sinking this fleet and killing 947 American sailors. If you have a problem with that, take it up with Admiral Brennan. Otherwise, brief me on your capabilities in the next 5 minutes, or get out of my way." Silence. Thornwell's eyes narrowed slightly. Then slowly a smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Yes, ma'am. Team of 16. Specialized in maritime assault, hostage, rescue, direct action. We can deploy by airship, helicopter, or submarine. Combat load includes HK-476, SIG P-226s, breaching charges, and whatever else the situation requires. Combat experience: Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen, a few places that aren't on any official record." "Syria," Elena's voice sharpened just slightly. "When multiple deployments, last one was 2019. Ever work with Delta 7? Thornwell's expression changed. "Recognition, maybe respect." "Once, joint operation near Mosul. Never met the full team, just their second in command, Captain Ravencroft. Hell of an operator." Elena's hand moved unconsciously to her bracelet. "She was. She died in Syria, 2021, Operation Nightfall, along with 10 others. Understanding dawned in Thornwell's eyes. "You were Delta 7. I was the only one who walked out." The atmosphere in the room shifted. Thornwell's posture changed from skeptical to attentive. "In the SEAL community, you proved yourself through action, not words. But surviving when your entire team died, that counted for something. What do you need from us, Commander?" Elena turned back to the maps. "In 48 hours, this fleet is going to be attacked by at least 4 submarines and multiple surface vessels. The enemy is led by a former Marine colonel who has 3 years of preparation and inside knowledge of our procedures. He's got better equipment, better positioning, and the element of surprise." She looked at Thornwell directly. "What I need from you is to help me turn his advantages into weaknesses. We're going to let him think he's winning right up until the moment we destroy him. Can your team handle that?" Thornwell studied the maps, saw the positions she'd marked, the firing solutions, the counter tactics. It was sophisticated work, professional, the kind of planning that came from someone who understood naval warfare at the highest level. "We can handle it," he said quietly. "What's the first move?" "First move is finding the insider. Someone on this ship is feeding information to Vaughn. Someone with access to communication schedules and tactical data. We find them, we cut off Vaughn's intelligence stream. We cut off his intelligence, he's operating blind." "How do we find them?" Elena's smile was cold. "We give them something worth reporting, and then we see who takes the bait." Admiral Brennan watched this exchange with the satisfaction of a man who'd made the right call. These two would work. Thornwell had the tactical expertise. Marchetti had the strategic vision. Together, they might actually pull this off. "I'll leave you to it," Brennan said. "Commander Thornwell. Commander Marchetti has full authority. Anything she needs, she gets. Clear. Crystal, sir." Brennan left. The door closed. Elena and Thornwell stood on opposite sides of the table, the map spread between them like a battlefield. Captain Ravencroft, Thornwell said quietly, she really trained you. Every day for 2 years. She was the best close-quarters combatant I ever saw. Could clear a room faster than anyone. Could shoot 6 targets in 3 seconds with a pistol. Could read terrain like it was a book. I heard stories about her, thought some of them had to be exaggerated. They weren't. If anything, they undersold it. Elena's voice carried a weight of memory. When she died, I carried her body 12 miles to the extraction point, through enemy territory, in the dark, because that's what she would have done for me. Thornwell nodded slowly, understanding. In the special operations community, that kind of loyalty was everything. The colonel who abandoned your team, Vaughn, that's who's commanding this attack. Yes. Then let's make sure he regrets it. Elena looked at him across the table, saw the determination in his eyes. The same determination Bell had carried. The same determination that had gotten 11 people killed and 1 person forged into something harder than steel. Let's make sure he doesn't survive it, she said quietly. And in that moment, Marcus Dalton Vaughn's fate was sealed. He just didn't know it yet. The war room was smaller than the briefing room, buried 3 decks below the main operations center. No windows, no natural light, just blue-tinged fluorescence and the quiet hum of secure computer terminals. This was where the real work happened, where classified operations were planned, where wars were won before the first shot was fired. Elena stood at the head of the table maps and satellite imagery spread before her like a hand of cards. She'd changed into tactical fatigues, her hair pulled back in a tight bun that revealed the scar above her left eyebrow. The black bracelet remained on her wrist, Bell's dog tag warm against her skin. Thornwell had assembled his team. 16 SEALs, all of them veterans of more operations than they'd ever be allowed to discuss. They watched her with varying degrees of curiosity and skepticism. She was an outsider. Worse, she was an outsider with Admiral-level authority who'd appeared out of nowhere. She understood their wariness. Respected it even. Trust had to be earned, not demanded. Gentlemen, she began, her voice carrying that same flat certainty they'd come to recognize. In 48 hours, this fleet will come under attack. The enemy force consists of at least 4 submarines, multiple surface vessels disguised as civilian craft, and an Ohio-class submarine that was reported in dry dock but is actually operational and hostile. She pulled up a satellite image on the main screen. The Philippine Sea dated 4 days earlier. The distinctive hull of USS Michigan was clearly visible. The commander of this operation is Colonel Marcus Dalton Vaughn, formerly United States Marine Corps, currently believed dead, but very much alive. He has 3 years of preparation, inside knowledge of our communications protocols, and at least 1 person feeding him information from this vessel. The room went cold. SEALs exchanged glances. An insider was the worst kind of threat. Cancer from within. Your job is to help me find that person before they can warn Vaughn that we're onto him. My job is to make sure that when Vaughn makes his move, we're ready to shove it down his throat. She changed the image to a tactical map of the exercise area. The planned route takes us through the Luzon Strait. Narrow water, multiple choke points, perfect ambush territory. Vaughn will position his submarines here, here, and here. She marked 3 locations. Surface vessels will approach from the west, hidden among legitimate commercial traffic. Michigan will hold back, ready to exploit any breakthrough. A senior chief raised his hand. Ma'am, with respect, how do you know his positioning? Because I know how he thinks. I served under him for 2 years. Watched him plan 17 operations. He's predictable when he thinks he has the advantage. He favors overwhelming force over finesse, hammer instead of scalpel. She zoomed in on the strait. He'll expect us to follow the exercise timeline, which means he'll expect us to be strung out, focused on simulated threats, not watching for real ones. That's his edge. What's our counter? Elena's smile was cold, but we changed the timeline, compressed the formation, put our anti-submarine assets forward instead of in the standard screen. And we make him think we're doing exactly what he expects right up until the moment we spring the trap. Thornwell leaned forward. You want to use the fleet as bait. The fleet is already bait. Vaughn thinks we don't know he's coming. That's his mistake. We're going to let him commit to the attack, then crush him when he's most vulnerable. Another SEAL spoke up. And the insider? That's where it gets interesting. Elena pulled up a personnel roster. There are 347 people aboard this vessel with access to tactical communications. We need to narrow that down to a manageable number. She highlighted several names. These 17 have the clearance and access necessary to provide Vaughn with the information he'd need. Communications officers, intelligence analysts, operations, specialists. All of them have been aboard less than 6 months. All of them transferred from different commands. So we watch all 17? No. We feed them information, different information to different groups. See which version makes it to Vaughn. Thornwell nodded slowly. Canary trap. Exactly. We leak 3 different versions of the modified timeline. Each version goes to a different subset of personnel. Whichever version Vaughn acts on tells us who's feeding him. It was elegant, simple, effective. The kind of counterintelligence tradecraft that spoke to years of experience in the shadows. When do we start? Elena checked her watch. 6 hours ago, Admiral Brennan is already implementing the first phase. By tonight, our insider will have something to report. By tomorrow morning, we'll know who they are. She looked around the room. Questions. A younger SEAL, maybe 25, raised his hand. Ma'am, if you don't mind me asking, the kill count you mentioned, 312. That real? The room went quiet. Every eye was on her. This was the real test, not tactical competence, not strategic vision, but authenticity. Warriors could smell bullshit from a mile away. Elena's expression didn't change. 193 confirmed kills over 6 years of special operations. 312 total when you include probable kills where bodies couldn't be confirmed due to operational security. 47 of those happened in one night in Syria, 2021, when my team was ambushed and I was the only survivor. She said it without pride or shame. Just fact, the same way you'd report the weather. The young SEAL nodded slowly, satisfied. Around the room, postures relaxed slightly. She'd passed the test. Thornwell stood. All right, you heard the lady. We got work to do. Chief Martinez, I want you on signals intelligence. Monitor all communications from the 17 suspects. Peterson Diaz, you're on physical surveillance. I want eyes on these people 24/7. The rest of you prep for maritime assault. If we're going after Michigan, we're going to need to board her. The team dispersed efficiently, each SEAL moving with purpose. Within 2 minutes, the room had cleared except for Elena and Thornwell. They buy it, Elena asked. They buy it. You know your shit. That's all that matters to them. And you buy it. Thornwell was quiet for a moment. I served with Belle Ravencroft. Not long. Just one operation. But long enough to know she was the real deal. She talked about you once. Said you were rough around the edges but had more raw talent than anyone she'd ever trained. Elena's jaw tightened slightly. She said that her exact words were, Marchetti's going to be better than me someday, if she doesn't get herself killed first. He paused. Looks like she was half right. Elena turned back to the maps, but her hand moved unconsciously to the bracelet. She was better than me. Better than anyone. What happened in Syria shouldn't have happened. She should have walked out. Not me. Survivor's guilt is natural, but it's also useless. Thornwell's voice was matter of fact. She made a choice. Refused the retreat order. Held position with the wounded, because that's what leaders do. You made a choice too. Went back for her. Held the position. Completed the objective. That's what warriors do. You're both right. You're both heroes. Don't diminish her sacrifice by wishing you died instead. Elena looked at him, really looked at him. Saw the same shadows in his eyes that she carried in hers. The weight of friends lost. Missions gone wrong. The price of survival. How many have you lost? Enough. He didn't elaborate, didn't need to. But I'm still here, still fighting, because that's what they'd want. That's what Belle would want for you too. Before Elena could respond, the door opened. A young lieutenant stepped in, tablet in hand. His face was pale. Commander Marchetti, we've got a problem. Elena's instincts kicked in immediately. What kind of problem? Signal intercept from 7th Fleet Communications just flagged an unauthorized transmission from this vessel. Encrypted. Burst transmission. Went out 20 minutes ago. What were the contents? Still working on decryption, but the metadata shows it went to a server in Manila, the same server that's been flagged as a potential node in Vaughn's communication network. Elena and Thornwell exchanged glances. 20 minutes ago, right after the briefing. Who sent it? The lieutenant consulted his tablet. That's the problem. It was routed through 3 different terminals. We can't pin down the origin point without more time. How much time? 4 to 6 hours for full trace analysis. Elena thought fast. Which of the 17 suspects had access to those 3 terminals? The lieutenant worked his tablet. Cross-referencing now, got it. 5 names: Lieutenant Declan Ravencroft, Intelligence; Lieutenant Commander Sarah Park, Communications; Ensign Michael Torres, Operations; Chief Petty Officer James Wilson, Signals; and Commander Robert Sullivan, Executive Officer. Thornwell's expression darkened. Sullivan. The XO. He has access to everything I ain't waking, the lieutenant confirmed. Elena stared at the names. Something nagged at her, something familiar. Pull up Ravencroft's file. The lieutenant worked quickly. Declan Ravencroft's personnel file appeared on screen. 29 years old, Naval Academy graduate, intelligence specialist. 3 years active duty, currently assigned to USS Sentinel as assistant intelligence officer. Elena scanned the biographical data. Place of birth, education, previous assignments. Then she saw it. Next of kin. Father Captain Charles Ravencroft, USA, retired. Mother Margaret Ravencroft, deceased. Sibling Captain Isabel Ravencroft, USN, deceased. The world seemed to tilt. Elena's hand gripped the edge of the table hard enough that her knuckles went white. Belle's brother, she whispered. Declan is Belle's brother. Thornwell leaned in, reading over her shoulder. Christ, did you know she had a brother? She mentioned him once, said he was following her into the Navy. That was years ago, before Syria. Elena's mind was racing. He would have been, 26 when Belle died, just an ensign. And now he's here, on this ship, right when you show up. Thornwell's tactical mind was working. That's not coincidence. No, it's not. Elena pulled up more data. Cross-reference. When did Ravencroft transfer to Sentinel? 4 months ago. Requested the transfer specifically. Said he wanted experience on a capital ship. 4 months. Right around the time Vaughn started assembling his strike force. Right around the time someone would have needed to be positioned to provide inside intelligence. Elena felt something cold settle in her stomach. Where is he now? The lieutenant checked. Should be in the intelligence center. Want me to call him here? No. Elena's voice was sharp. Don't alert him. Thornwell, you're with me. Lieutenant, keep working on that transmission trace. I want to know exactly what was in that message. They moved quickly through the quarters, Elena's mind processing possibilities. Declan Ravencroft, Belle's younger brother. She remembered Belle talking about him. Smart kid, idealistic, wanted to make a difference. But people changed, especially when they lost someone they loved. The intelligence center was 2 decks up, a secure space filled with computer workstations and classified displays. Half a dozen analysts worked quietly processing data streams from satellites in signals intelligence. Declan Ravencroft sat at a terminal near the back. He was tall, lean, with dark red hair, the same shade as Belle's. When he looked up at their approach, Elena saw green eyes, Belle's eyes. The recognition was mutual. Declan's face went through several emotions in rapid succession. Surprise, confusion, then something harder. Anger maybe, or hate. Lieutenant Ravencroft, Elena said quietly, we need to talk, privately. He stood slowly. His hand moved toward his belt, toward the sidearm all officers wore aboard ship. Thornwell's hand moved too, resting casually on his own weapon. Easy, Elena said. Nobody needs to do anything stupid, just a conversation. Declan's hand stopped. He looked between Elena and Thornwell, calculating odds. SEALs were trained to read body language. Elena saw him recognize the futility of resistance. Conference room 3, he said quietly. It's shielded. Private. They walked in tense silence. Elena kept her distance, stayed alert. Thornwell moved like a predator, balanced on the balls of his feet, ready for violence. Conference room 3 was small, 1 table, 6 chairs, soundproofed walls. Elena gestured for Declan to sit. He did, but his posture was rigid, defensive. You're Elena Marchetti, he said, Bell's second in command. I was. You got her killed. The accusation hung in the air like gun smoke. Elena didn't flinch, didn't defend, just looked at him with those storm cloud eyes and let him see the truth. Your sister died a hero. She stayed with 6 wounded operators when our commanding officer ordered a retreat. She held position for 3 hours against overwhelming force. When I found her, she'd taken an abdominal wound from a rifle round. I held pressure on it, gave her morphine, stayed with her until she died. Declan's jaw clenched. That's not what I heard. What did you hear? I heard that you abandoned her, that you saved yourself and left her to die. That's what Colonel Vaughn told me. There it was, the confirmation. Elena felt no satisfaction, just weariness. When did Vaughn contact you? 6 months after Bell died, he called me, said he'd been trying to find the courage to reach out, said he felt guilty about what happened, said he wanted me to know the truth about Operation Nightfall. And what truth did he tell you? Declan's voice was bitter. That Bell refused to follow the retreat order, that she got the team killed through stubbornness, that you had a chance to save her but chose to secure the objective instead, that Bell died calling your name, wondering why you'd left her. Elena closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they were wet, not from tears that fell, just from tears that wanted to. Everything he told you was a lie. Why should I believe you? Elena reached into her pocket slowly, carefully, pulled out a small encrypted drive, set it on the table between them. Because I have Bell's last words. Recorded. She was wearing a tactical recorder. Standard procedure for Black Ops. Everything got captured, including the moment she died. Declan stared at the drive like it was a grenade. You've had this for 3 years. I've carried it every day, couldn't bring myself to listen to it, couldn't bring myself to delete it. It's evidence. Proof of what really happened. Proof that Vaughn set us up. She pushed the drive toward him. Play it. You deserve to know the truth. Declan's hand trembled as he picked up the drive. Thornwell produced a tablet air-gapped from the ship's network. Secure. Declan inserted the drive with shaking fingers. Audio began to play. The first sounds were gunfire. Distant, then closer. Then the unmistakable sound of someone breathing hard through pain. Bell's voice strained but clear. Marchetti, you shouldn't have come back. Elena's voice younger, more raw. I'm not leaving you, Captain. The others, Henderson's dead. Martinez too. The other 4 are stabilized but critical. We need that extraction. Not coming. Vaughn abandoned us, called the mission a failure, left us to die. Silence except for labored breathing. Then Bell again, weaker now. Elena, listen to me. He sold us out. The ambush wasn't random. They knew we were coming, knew our timing, our entry point, everything. Who sold us out? Vaughn. He was working with the other side, the nuclear material. He wanted it for himself, set us up to cover his tracks. More silence. The sound of Elena's voice tight with emotion. Stay with me, Bell. Please. Extraction's coming. No, it's not. We both know that. A wet rattling sound. Blood in the lungs. Promise me something. Anything. Don't let him get away with it. Find proof. Make them see the truth. Clear our names. Her breathing was shallower now, fading. And Elena, tell Declan. Tell him, I'm sorry, I won't be there. Tell him to be better than me, better than all of us. I will, I promise. You're going to do great things, kid. Don't let this break you. Use it. Be the weapon Bell made you. A long pause. Then the sound of someone crying. Not sobbing, just quiet tears. And Bell's voice, one last time, barely a whisper. Proud of you. Always. Then nothing. Just static. The recorder had continued running for another 6 hours, capturing the sounds of Elena fighting. 47 enemies. One by one, hour after hour, until there was silence. Declan sat frozen. His face was wet. His hands gripped the edge of the table so hard his fingers were white. She said my name, he whispered. She thought of me. She loved you, Elena said quietly. Everything she did, every mission, every risk, it was to make the world safer for people like you. Declan looked up at her. His eyes were Belle's eyes, green and fierce and full of pain. Vaughn told me you abandoned her. He said. He said she died alone. She didn't die alone. I held her hand. I closed her eyes. I carried her body 12 miles through enemy territory to the extraction point. And I wore her dog tag every day for 3 years. Elena's hand moved unconsciously to the bracelet on her wrist. She felt the weight of Belle's dog tag inside warm against her skin. I didn't save her. I'll regret that until the day I die. But I didn't abandon her, and I never will. She looked at Declan directly. Your sister died knowing she was loved, knowing someone would finish what she started. That someone is me, and now it's you too. Declan's eyes filled with tears. Can I? His voice broke. Can I see it? Her tag. Elena shook her head gently. Not yet, when this is over. When Vaughn is in chains and Belle's name is cleared, I'll give it to you. That's a promise. Vaughn lied to me about everything. Yes, he recruited me 6 months ago, said he had proof that the Navy covered up what really happened, said he was gathering evidence, that he needed inside help, someone who could access classified communications. The transmission 20 minutes ago. That was you. Yes, I told him about you, about the briefing, about the changed timeline. His voice broke. I'm so sorry. I thought I was helping Belle, getting justice for her. Elena leaned forward. Declan, look at me. He did, saw no judgment in her eyes, just understanding. Your sister would forbid you, she'd understand. You were manipulated by someone who's very good at it. But now you know the truth. Now you have a choice. What choice? Help me stop him. Help me finish what Belle started. Or I arrest you right now for treason, and you spend the rest of your life in Leavenworth wondering if you could have made a difference. Thornwell stepped forward. For what it's worth, kid, I'd take option 1. The lady's offering you a chance to honor your sister. That's more than most traitors get. Declan looked between them, then down at the P tag. Belle's dog tag. Evidence of love and loss and sacrifice. What do you need me to do? Elena felt something unclench in her chest, not quite relief, but close. First, you tell me exactly what you sent in that transmission. I told Vaughn about the modified timeline, that you'd move the exercise up by 12 hours, that the fleet would be in the strait at 0400 instead of 1600, which means he'll adjust his positioning, move his submarines forward, compress his own timeline. Elena's mind was already calculating. That's good. That's actually good. How is that good? Because now we know when he'll attack 0400, which gives us 12 hours to prepare. She looked at Thornwell. Can your team be ready? We stay ready. Just tell us where to point. Elena turned back to Declan. You're going to send another transmission. Tell Vaughn the timeline's changed again. Back to the original, 1600. Make it sound urgent, like you had to scramble to get him the updated information. He'll wonder why the change. Tell him I got suspicious, that Admiral Brennan pushed back on the modification, that there was an argument and I lost. Make it believable. Declan nodded slowly. And when he adjusts back to 1600, he won't be able to, not completely. He's got 4 submarines to coordinate. Surface vessels, Michigan's position, changing plans takes time. Communication. He'll try to adjust, but he won't be able to do it cleanly. He'll be off balance, uncertain. That's when we hit him. It was elegant, brutal, the kind of plan that turned an enemy's strength into weakness. Vaughn thought he had inside information, thought he was operating from knowledge, but Elena was feeding him false intelligence through his own source. Classic counterintelligence. What about Michigan? Thornwell asked. An Ohio-class submarine is a serious problem. Even if we stop the other boats, Michigan can do massive damage. Michigan's our primary target. I want her intact if possible. That means boarding action. Boarding a submarine underway is nearly impossible. Nearly impossible is what SEALs do. Elena pulled up a new schematic. Michigan will hold back from the main attack. Vaughn's cautious. He'll want to see how the first wave goes before committing his main asset. That gives us a window, maybe 20 minutes, maybe less. But enough. She traced a route on the screen. While your team engages the forward submarines, then I take a second team and go after Michigan. Fast boats. Approach from the stern quarter where their sonar coverage is weakest. Board while they're focused on the main battle. Secure the control room before they can launch. Thornwell studied the plan. It was insane. It was brilliant. It might actually work. You've done this before. Boarded a hostile submarine. Once. Different circumstances, but yes. And you think Vaughn will be aboard Michigan personally? I know he will. He's commanding this operation. He'll want to be on the most powerful platform. He's predictable that way, all ego. Declan spoke up quietly. He'll kill you if he gets the chance. He knows you're the only witness to what happened in Syria. He can try. Lena's voice was ice. But I've survived him for 3 years. I don't plan to stop now. She looked at both men. Thornwell, brief your team. I want detailed mock-ups of Michigan's interior layout. I want everyone to know that submarine like they grew up on it. Declan, send that transmission. Make it convincing. Then stay in your normal routine. If Vaughn has any other sources aboard, we don't want them getting suspicious. Both men nodded. They understood their roles, their responsibilities. As they moved to leave, Declan stopped, turned back to Elena. Commander Marchetti, thank you for staying with her, for not letting her die alone. Elena's expression softened just slightly. She was the best of us. Everything I am, she made me. I owed her that much. Will you tell me, after this is over, will you tell me more about her, about who she really was? I'll tell you everything, every story, every mission, every joke she told, and every lesson she taught. You deserve to know your sister the way I knew her. Declan's eyes glistened. She talked about you, you know, in her letters. Said you were the best raw talent she'd ever seen. Said you'd either be the greatest operator in the world or get yourself killed trying. Elena smiled, sad and distant. Looks like she was half right about that too. After they left, Elena stood alone in the conference room. She touched the bracelet on her wrist, felt Belle's dog tag warm against her skin. I found him, Belle, she whispered to the empty room. Your brother. He's a good kid. Misguided but good. You'd be proud of him. She closed her eyes, remembering Belle's face. The way she smiled when a plan came together. The way she moved through a room like she owned it. The way she looked at Elena with something like pride when Elena finally mastered a difficult technique. We're going to finish this. Vaughn's going to pay for what he did, and your name's going to be cleared. You're going to be remembered as the hero you were. The room didn't answer, but Elena felt something settle in her chest, a sense of rightness, purpose. She'd carried Belle's memory for 3 years. Tomorrow she'd honor it. Tomorrow Marcus Dalton Vaughn would learn what happens when you betray the best of the best. Tomorrow Ghost Valkyrie would keep her promise. The darkness before dawn was absolute. No moon, no stars, just the endless black of the Pacific stretching in every direction like a void that could swallow the world. The USS Sentinel cut through the water at 20 knots, her escort destroyers arrayed around her in a defensive screen that looked textbook perfect. But appearances were deceiving. Elena stood on the bridge next to Admiral Brennan, her eyes scanning the tactical displays with the intensity of someone who knew death was coming. The clock read 03:45, 15 minutes until Vaughn's expected attack window. 15 minutes until 3 years of running and planning and surviving came to a head. All stations report ready, Brennan said quietly. His voice was steady, but Elena could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his fingers drummed once against the rail before he forced them to stillness. He'd commanded ships through the Gulf War, through counter-piracy operations off Somalia, through a dozen crises that never made the news. But this was different. This was personal. SEAL teams are positioned. Thornwell's voice crackled through the secure channel. First squad on the port side ribs, second squad starboard. We're ready to deploy on your signal. Elena keyed her own mic. Lieutenant Ravencroft's status on that transmission. Declan's voice came back immediately. Sent at 0300 as ordered, Commander. Told Vaughn the timeline was back to 1600. Made it sound panicked, like I was risking everything to get him the information. Any response? Negative, radio silence from his end. That was expected. Vaughn was too professional to acknowledge receipt of intelligence from a compromised source, but he'd received it. Elena was certain of that. And he'd tried to adjust his plan. The question was how much he'd managed to adjust. Sonar contact. The call came from the Combat Information Center below. Bearing 270, range 8,000 yards, classification submarine, probable kilo-class diesel-electric. Elena felt her pulse quicken. First contact. Put it on screen. The tactical display updated, showing a red icon appearing to the west. As they watched, two more appeared. One to the north, one to the south. 3 submarines, Brennan said, forming a kill box around the strait. 4, Elena corrected. She pointed to a sector that showed empty water. There's another one there, has to be. Vaughn likes symmetry. He'll have the 4th one holding back as a reserve. As if summoned by her words, a 4th contact appeared exactly where she'd indicated. Brennan looked at her with something like awe. You really do know how he thinks. I served under him for 2 years, watched him plan 17 operations. He's good, but he's predictable. She studied the display. These are just the screening force. The real threat is still out there. Michigan. Michigan. She'll be deeper, farther out, waiting to see how the first wave develops before committing. Elena zoomed out the display, looking at the broader tactical picture. There, 15,000 yards to the west, deep water, perfect position for a command and control platform. I don't see anything on that bearing. You won't, not yet. Ohio-class submarines are the quietest boats in the world. She won't light up sonar until she wants to be seen. Elena turned to Brennan. Permission to deploy, Admiral? Brennan held her gaze for a long moment. In that moment, she saw him making calculations, weighing risks, evaluating her. Then he nodded slowly. Permission granted. Bring my people home, Commander. Elena saluted. Yes, sir. Then she was moving, heading down to the main deck where Thornwell and his team waited. The night air hit her like a physical thing. Cold, salt-laced, filled with the smell of the ocean and diesel fuel and the peculiar tension that came before combat. The SEALs were already in their boats, 2 rigid-hull, inflatable boats loaded with gear and weapons, dark shapes against darker water. Thornwell stood by the lead boat, his face painted with camouflage, his HK-416 hanging against his chest. He looked like violence waiting to happen. Change of plans, Elena said. I'm taking 2nd squad to go after Michigan. You take 1st squad and handle the screening submarines. You're going after an Ohio-class submarine with 8 SEALs. 7, I need one to stay behind. She turned. Petty Officer Martinez, you're staying with the fleet. Someone needs to coordinate communications. Martinez looked disappointed but nodded. Yes, ma'am. Commander with Thornwell said carefully, taking on Michigan with 7 people is suicide. No, it's calculated risk. We're not trying to take the whole boat. Just the control room. Get Vaughn, Sonin, force a surrender or scuttle. Either way, we take Michigan out of the fight. And if it goes wrong, Elena's smile was cold, then you finish the job. Stop the other submarines. Save the fleet. Don't worry about me. Thornwell wanted to argue. She could see it in his eyes. But he was also a professional who understood operational necessity. Sometimes the mission required sacrifice. Don't die out there, he said finally. Belle would kill me if I let her protege get wasted on a stupid boarding action. Belle would understand this is what she trained me for. Elena climbed into the 2nd boat. The remaining 6 SEALs shifted to make room. All teams move out. Stay dark. Stay quiet. And remember, we don't start the party until they do. The boats dropped into the water with barely a splash. Twin engines purred to life, muffled by sound-dampening technology that made them almost impossible to hear beyond 50 yards. They split up immediately. Thornwell's boat heading north toward the screening submarines. Elena's boat heading west toward where Michigan lurked in the deep water. The ocean at night was a different world. Sound carried strangely. Distance became impossible to judge. Elena's eyes adjusted to the darkness, picking out the subtle differences between water and sky, between shadow and substance. The boat skipped across the waves at 30 knots, eating up distance. She checked her gear for the 3rd time. HK-416 with suppressor. Sig Sauer P320 on her hip. 4 magazines for each. Breaching charges. Flashbangs. Combat knife. the bracelet on her wrist with Belle's dog tag inside. 5 minutes to intercept point, the coxswain said quietly. Elena keyed her radio. Sentinel Ghost Actual. We're approaching Michigan's probable position. Going dark for final approach. Copy Ghost Actual. Brennan's voice came back. Godspeed. The radio went silent. Elena looked at the 6 SEALs with her. All of them were veterans. All of them knew the odds. None of them looked worried. Listen up, she said quietly. We're about to board the most powerful submarine in the world. It's commanded by a man who's betrayed everything he swore to protect. A man who killed 11 of my teammates 3 years ago. A man who will absolutely kill all of us if we give him the chance. She let that sink in. But we're not going to give him that chance. We're going to hit that boat fast and hard and professional. We're going to secure the control room. We're going to capture or kill Colonel Marcus Vaughn, and we're going to do it in under 5 minutes because that's all the time we'll have before his crew realizes what's happening. She looked each of them in the eye. This is not a glory mission. This is not about heroics. This is about stopping a terrorist attack on American forces, about honoring the people who died because of one man's greed and cowardice, about making sure that man never hurts anyone again. The SEALs nodded. They understood. 2 minutes, the coxswain said. Then, like a whale surfacing from the abyss, USS Michigan appeared in the darkness ahead. Her sail broke the surface, first water streaming off the black metal. Then her deck. She was running on the surface, engines idling, positioned perfectly to observe the coming battle. There, Elena breathed. Throttle back, silent approach. The boat's engine dropped to a whisper. They glided across the water like a ghost, closing the distance meter by meter. 100 yards, 50, 25. No alarm, no reaction. Michigan's crew was focused on their sensors, watching the fleet in the distance, waiting for Vaughn's order to attack. They never saw the SEALs coming. Elena's boat bumped against Michigan's hull with barely a sound. Magnetic grapples deployed, locking them in place. The SEALs moved with practiced efficiency. Up the side of the hull, across the deck, toward the forward hatch that would give them access to the control room. Elena was third in line, her weapon up, her breathing controlled. They reached the hatch. The SEAL in front tested it gently. Unlocked. Of course it was. Who would expect a boarding action on the open ocean? Who would think anyone was crazy enough to try? The hatch swung open silently on well-oiled hinges, ladder leading down into red-lit darkness. The smell of recycled air and machinery oil wafted up. First SEAL descended, then second, then Elena, moving quickly but quietly, down one ladder, down another. The submarine's interior was cramped and maze-like, but Elena had studied the schematics until she could navigate them blind. They passed crew quarters. Empty. Everyone was at their stations. Good. Fewer complications. Voices ahead, someone laughing, the casual sound of people who thought they were safe. The corridor opened into the control room. 20 feet long, 10 feet wide, packed with consoles and screens and the subdued glow of tactical displays. A dozen crew members at their stations, and standing in the center, hands behind his back, studying a tactical plot, was Marcus Dalton Vaughn. He looked older than Elena remembered. His hair was more gray than brown now. His face harder, like something inside him had calcified into stone. But his posture was the same. Arrogant, certain. The bearing of a man who'd never doubted himself. Elena raised her weapon. The 6 SEALs spread out, covering every angle. In 2 seconds, they had complete tactical superiority. Nobody move! Elena's voice cut through the control room like a blade. Hands where I can see them, ow! Chaos erupted. Crew members spun in their chairs. Hands went up. Someone reached for a weapon, and a SEAL put 2 suppressed rounds into the bulkhead next to his head. The man froze. Vaughn turned slowly. No panic, no fear, just calm calculation as he assessed the situation. His eyes found Elena, and recognition flickered across his face. Elena Marchetti. His voice was smooth, almost pleased. I should have known. When Declan told me about the mysterious tactical consultant, I had my suspicions. But I thought, no, Elena's too smart to surface, too careful. Hands up, Colonel, slowly. Vaughn raised his hands, but his expression remained calm, almost amused. You're pointing a gun at me, on my submarine, surrounded by my crew. Do you really think this ends well for you? I think it ends with you in chains. Or dead. I'm flexible. Are you doing? Vaughn smiled. Because I remember a young lieutenant who followed orders without question, who did what she was told because that's what good soldiers do. What changed? You did. When you sold out your team, when you left Belle Ravencroft and 10 others to die so you could steal nuclear material and line your pockets. Something flickered in Vaughn's eyes. Annoyance, maybe, or recognition that she knew more than he'd expected. Belle. He said the name like he was tasting something bitter. She was always too loyal, too committed. I gave the retreat order. She refused to follow it, got herself killed through stubbornness. Elena felt rage surge through her veins like fire. Her finger tightened on the trigger. It would be so easy. One shot, end it here. But Belle's voice echoed in her memory clear as the day she'd first said it. You're a weapon, Marchetti, but weapons don't think. Warriors do. You want to survive in this world, you need to be both. She forced her finger to relax, forced herself to breathe. You're lying. I have the recording. Belle's last words. She knew you set us up, knew you were working with the enemy. That's why you left her behind, because she figured it out. Vaughn's smile faded. So you have a recording. So what? Who's going to believe it? I'm officially dead. My records are sealed, and you're a ghost who doesn't exist. Your testimony is worthless. Maybe, but Admiral Brennan believes me. And right now, he's broadcasting your coordinates to every ship in the Pacific Fleet. In about 3 minutes, you're going to have 5 destroyers and a carrier bearing down on this position. You can surrender now or you can try to fight. Either way, you lose. For the first time, uncertainty crossed Vaughn's face. He glanced at the tactical display, saw the fleet's position, saw the vector that would bring them here. You changed the timeline, he said slowly. Declan told me 1600, but you came at 0400 anyway. I fed Declan false information. He fed it to you. You tried to adjust your plan but couldn't do it cleanly. Now your submarines are out of position, your timing is wrong, and your command platform is compromised. Ina took a step forward. It's over, Marcus. You lost. Vaughn's jaw clenched. She could see him thinking, calculating, looking for the angle that would let him escape. Then his eyes shifted to something behind her. Just for a fraction of a second. Elena spun. Too late. The crew member she thought was complying was moving. Drawing a pistol from inside his jacket, Elena's weapon came up, but one of the SEALs was in her line of fire. 2 shots, impossibly loud in the confined space. The SEAL next to her jerked and went down. Blood on the bulkhead. The crew member swung his weapon toward Elena. She fired twice. Center mass. The man dropped. But the damage was done. The control room erupted into chaos. Crew members dove for cover. Someone hit an alarm. Klaxons shrieked. Red lights flashed. Secure the crew, Elena shouted. The SEALs moved immediately, weapons up, forcing the crew members to the deck. But Vaughn was moving too. He lunged for a console. His hand came down on a button. A heavy door started sliding closed, sealing off the control room from the forward compartments. Elena realized what he was doing. Stop him! She fired. The round sparked off the console next to Vaughn's hand. He jerked back but kept moving, heading for the rear hatch, the one that led to the missile room. Elena went after him, through the closing door with inches to spare, into the corridor beyond. Vaughn was 20 feet ahead running. She raised her weapon, but couldn't get a clean shot in the narrow passage. They emerged into the missile room, 2 rows of vertical launch tubes, each one capable of hurling a Tomahawk cruise missile 500 miles. In the center between the tubes was a control panel. Vaughn reached it first. His hands flew across the keys. Elena saw the displays light up. Launch sequences initializing. Step away from that panel. She had a clear shot now. Center mass. She could end this. Vaughn looked at her over his shoulder. You won't shoot. You need me alive. Need me to testify. Need me to clear Belle's name. I can clear her name with the evidence I have. You're just insurance. Maybe. But I'm also the only one who can stop this. He gestured to the displays. I've initiated a launch sequence. 16 missiles. Target coordinates Pearl Harbor Naval Base. They launch in 90 seconds. The only way to stop it is with my command codes. Elena felt ice in her veins. You're bluffing. Am I? Vaughn smiled. You know me, Elena. You served under me. Have I ever bluffed? She stared at the displays, launch sequences progressing. 75 seconds. 74. Give me the codes. Give me safe passage. Guarantee I won't be prosecuted. Get me out of here alive and I'll stop the launch. You killed 11 people, betrayed your country, stole a nuclear submarine. I'm not giving you anything. Then Pearl Harbor burns. 3,000 personnel, maybe more, all because you couldn't make a deal. 60 seconds, Elena's mind raced. Could she force him to give up the codes? Torture didn't work. Not in 60 seconds. Could she shoot him and hope he'd give them up while dying? Too risky. Could she let Pearl Harbor be destroyed? Never. Fine, she said. You get safe passage. You get immunity from prosecution. But you give me the codes now. Vaughn studied her face, looking for the lie, the trick. How do I know you'll keep your word? Because I'm not you. I don't break promises to my people. 45 seconds. Vaughn's fingers hovered over the keyboard. You'll let me walk. I'll let you live. That's more than you deserve. 30 seconds. Vaughn's hand moved toward the keys, then stopped. His smile returned. You know what? I don't think I believe you. Elena's blood ran cold. What? I think you'll say anything to stop this launch. But the moment I give you those codes, you'll put a bullet in my head. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to walk out of here. I'm going to get on that boat you came in on, and I'm going to disappear. And maybe if I feel generous, I'll transmit the abort codes once I'm clear. 20 seconds. You're insane. No, I'm pragmatic. Belle never understood that. She thought honor mattered. Loyalty mattered. But in the real world, only survival matters. I survived Syria by being smarter than everyone else. I'll survive this the same way. 15 seconds. Elena's weapon was still pointed at his chest. Center mass. Perfect shot. She could end him right now. But 3,000 people would die. 10 seconds. Last chance, Marcus. Give me the codes. Last chance, Elena. Let me walk. 5 seconds. Elena lowered her weapon. Vaughn's smile widened. He turned toward the hatch, and Elena shot him in the leg. The round took him in the back of the thigh. Femoral artery. Vaughn screamed and went down, blood already pooling beneath him. Elena was on him in 2 steps. She grabbed his collar, yanked his face close to hers. You said you'd give the codes. You didn't say when. So here's how this works. You give me those codes right now or I let you bleed out. 3 minutes tops with ephemeral hit. Your choice. Vaughn's face was white with pain and shock. His hands clutched at his leg uselessly. Blood was pumping between his fingers. A lot of blood. You shot me, he gasped. Yes, and you're dying. Codes, now. The display behind them showed 2 seconds. Vaughn's eyes went to the screen. Back to Elena. He saw death in her eyes. Absolute certainty. She would watch him die without blinking. 7, 4, 3, Alpha, 9. Lima, he gasped. Abort code. 743, Alpha 9 Lima. Elena dropped him and lunged for the console. Her fingers flew across the keys, entered the sequence. Hit execute. Launch aborted scrolled across every screen. For 3 seconds, Elena couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The adrenaline that had carried her through the last 5 minutes drained away all at once, leaving her hollow and shaking. 3,000 lives. 3,000 people who would never know how close they'd come to dying. Who would wake up tomorrow and drink their coffee and complain about traffic, never knowing that a woman they'd never met had stood between them and oblivion. Belle's voice whispered in her mind one last time. Proud of you. Always. Elena let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Then she turned to face the man who'd tried to murder them all. Behind her, Vaughn was still bleeding, still conscious, still alive, but not for long. She pulled out a tourniquet from her med kit, knelt beside him, started applying it to his leg. Why? Vaughn gasped. Why save me now? Because Belle would want me to. Because I made a promise to let you live. And because you're going to stand trial, you're going to tell everyone what you did, and you're going to spend the rest of your life in Leavenworth remembering that you lost. She cinched the tourniquet tight. Vaughn screamed, but the bleeding slowed. The SEALs appeared in the hatchway, weapons ready. Control room is secure, ma'am. Crew is surrendered, but we've got incoming. Incoming what? The other submarines. They're attacking the fleet. Elena's head snapped up. Of course, Vaughn had initiated his attack even after being captured. The screening submarines wouldn't know their commander was down. They'd continue with the mission. She keyed her radio. Sentinel Ghost actual. Michigan is secure. Vaughn is captured, but his submarines are still attacking. You need to engage. Static. Then Brennan's voice tight with stress. We're under fire. 2 torpedoes inbound. We've launched countermeasures, but... The radio cut to static. No. Elena was moving before she realized it. Back through the corridor, into the control room. The SEALs had Michigan's crew zip-tied and lined up against the bulkhead. She shoved past them to the communications console. Get me a channel to those submarines, now. The communications officer, a young petty officer with his hands bound, looked confused. Ma'am, they won't respond to... Do it! He nodded to another SEAL who cut his zip tie. The petty officer worked the console with shaking hands. Channel open. Elena grabbed the microphone. All Spectre submarines, this is Commander Elena Marchetti aboard USS Michigan. Your commanding officer, Colonel Marcus Vaughn, has been captured. He is wounded and in custody. The mission is over. Surface and surrender immediately or you will be destroyed. You have 60 seconds to comply. Silence. Then a voice heavily accented. Russian, maybe. This is Spectre 2. Prove Vaughn is captured. Elena looked around, saw Vaughn being carried in by 2 SEALs unconscious from blood loss but alive. She gestured. They brought him to the microphone. Wake him up. One of the SEALs slapped Vaughn's face. His eyes fluttered open. Tell them, Elena said. Tell them to stand down. Vaughn looked at her with hate, pure distilled hate. But he was beaten, and he knew it. All units, stand down, surface and surrender. His voice was weak but clear. Mission is over. Silence again. Then, acknowledged, Spectre 2 surfacing. One by one, the other submarines confirmed. Elena watched the tactical display as 4 red icons began rising toward the surface. In the distance, she could see the fleet's destroyers moving to intercept. Sentinel Ghost actual. All hostile submarines are surrendering. Threat neutralized. Another voice cut in. Thornwell, breathing hard but alive. Ghost actual Reaper. First squad has secured 2 enemy submarines. Crews are in custody. We took some fire, but no friendly KIA. 1 wounded non-critical. Relief flooded through Elena. Good work, Reaper. Get your people back to Sentinel. Copy that. And Commander, that was some damn fine work on Michigan. Bell would have been proud. Elena's throat tightened. She trained me well. That she did. Reaper out. Brennan's voice came back flooded with relief. Confirmed Ghost actual. Well done. Get back here. Drinks are on me. Elena almost smiled. Almost. But the adrenaline was fading now, leaving behind exhaustion and the hollow ache that came after combat. She looked at Vaughn, at the man who'd betrayed everything. The man who'd killed Bell and 10 others. The man she'd hunted for 3 years. He looked small now. Broken. Just a man who'd made terrible choices and would pay for them. Get him to medical, she told the SEALs. Keep him alive. He's got a trial to face. As they carried him out, Elena stood alone in the control room. She touched the bracelet on her wrist, felt Bell's dog tag warm against her skin. It's done, she whispered. I kept my promise. He's going to pay for what he did, and your name is going to be cleared. Everyone will know what kind of hero you were. The room didn't answer, but Elena felt something lift from her shoulders. A weight she'd carried for 3 years. Not gone, but lighter. She'd kept her promise. Bell could rest now, and so could she. 72 hours later, Elena stood on the deck of the USS Sentinel in dress whites, her hair pulled back in a regulation bun, her shoes polished to mirror shine. The entire crew was assembled in formation, hundreds of sailors in perfect rows. Admiral Brennan stood at the podium, his voice carrying across the deck. Today we honor those who gave their lives in service of their country. Captain Isabel Ravencroft, Lieutenant David Henderson, Sergeant Marcus Martinez. He read all 11 names, each one a person, a life, a story cut short. For 3 years, these warriors were listed as casualties of a failed mission. But the truth is very different. They died as heroes, completing their objective, protecting their country, refusing to abandon their wounded even in the face of overwhelming odds. He paused. Today, the record is corrected. Today, they receive the honors they earned. One by one, Brennan read citations. One by one, medals were presented to family members. Silver stars, bronze stars, purple hearts, and for Captain Isabel Ravencroft, something more. The Medal of Honor is presented to Captain Isabel Ravencroft for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of her life above and beyond the call of duty. Brennan held up the medal, the distinctive blue ribbon, the star suspended from it. Lieutenant Declan Ravencroft stepped forward to receive it. His face was composed, but Elena could see the tears tracking down his cheeks, could see the pride and pain warring in his eyes. When Declan returned to formation, he stood next to Elena. Neither spoke, but his hand found hers and squeezed. She squeezed back. After the ceremony, Elena found Admiral Brennan in his quarters. He was removing his dress uniform, hanging it carefully in the closet. "Commander Marchetti," he said without turning, "I was wondering when you'd show up. Sir, I wanted to thank you for believing me, for trusting me, for giving me the chance to finish this." Brennan turned. In his hand was a folder. He held it out to her. "Your reinstatement papers. Full commander rank, choice of assignment. The Navy wants you back." Elena took the folder, opened it, saw her name, her rank, the official seal that would make her a serving officer again instead of a ghost. "And if I'm not ready to come back, then the offer stands until you are." Brennan smiled. "Your father used to do the same thing. After big operations, he'd take time, visit the families, make sure everyone knew their people died as heroes. He did. Every time, said it was the commander's responsibility to carry the memory, to make sure no one was forgotten." Brennan's smile faded. "You're like him, more than you know. He'd be proud of what you've done." Elena felt her throat tighten. "Thank you, sir." "There's one more thing." Brennan pulled out another folder. "Vaughn's trial is in 3 months. You'll need to testify. It won't be easy. I'll be there." "I know you will." He paused. What he said on Michigan, about survival being all that matters. Do you believe that Elena thought about Bell, about the 11 others who'd stayed behind, about the choice they'd made to put mission and teammates above self? "No, sir, I don't. I think some things matter more than survival. Honor matters. Loyalty matters. Remembering the people who gave everything matters." Brennan nodded slowly. "Your father said something similar once. After he pulled me out of that Bradley, I asked him why he risked his life for one lieutenant. You know what he said? What? He said, because if I don't, who will? And if we don't take care of each other, what are we fighting for?" Brennan's eyes glistened. "You've honored his memory, Elena, and Bell's, and all of them. Never forget that." Elena came to attention, saluted. "I won't, sir. That's a promise." She turned to leave. At the door, Brennan called out, "Commander, when you're ready to come back, come see me first. I've got a special unit that needs someone exactly like you." Elena smiled. "Yes, sir, I'll do that." She walked out into the corridor. The sun was setting over the Pacific, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. Beautiful, peaceful, the kind of sunset Belle would have loved. Elena pulled out her phone, dialed a number she'd been carrying for 3 years but never called. It rang twice before a woman answered. "Mrs. Ravencroft, this is Commander Elena Marchetti. I served with your daughter Belle in Delta 7. She took a breath. "I was wondering if I could come visit you, to tell you about her, about who she really was, about the hero she became." The woman on the other end of the line was crying, but through the tears, Elena heard, "Yes, please, I'd like that very much. I'll be there next week. And Mrs. Ravencroft, I'm bringing her Medal of Honor, the one Declan received, so you can see it, so you can know that the whole world understands what she sacrificed." They talked for 20 minutes. About Belle, about Syria, about the recording and the ball, and 3 years of carrying memory like a sacred trust. When Elena finally hung up, she felt lighter, not healed, never healed, but better. She walked to the rail and looked out at the ocean. Somewhere out there, Vaughn was in the brig of a destroyer heading to trial and life imprisonment. Somewhere out there, 11 families were getting the truth about their loved ones. And somewhere, Elena Hope Bell Ravencroft was finally at rest. Elena unclasped the bracelet, opened it, looked at the dog tag inside one last time. Capturs I, Ravencroft Delta 7, Si vis pacem parabellum on, Elena whispered. If you want peace, prepare for war. You taught me that, Belle. You taught me everything. She closed the bracelet, put it back on her wrist, where it would stay, where it belonged. The Admiral had asked her kill count as a joke. 312 she'd answered, and the number had shocked the entire Navy. But what mattered more than the number was the why. Why she fought, why she survived, why she kept going when everything said to quit. The answer was simple. For Belle, for the 11, for everyone who'd ever trusted her to bring them home. That was worth more than any kill count, more than any medal, more than survival itself. Elena Marchetti, Commander, United States Navy Ghost Valkyrie, stood on the deck of the USS Sentinel and watched the sun set over the Pacific. Tomorrow she'd visit families. Tomorrow she'd continue the work of honoring the dead. But tonight, for the first time in 3 years, she'd sleep without the weight of broken promises. Tonight, she'd earned her rest. The ghost could finally stop running. The war was over, and the warriors could come home.